record. I want to share screen so you guys at home can see this, and then we are good. Okay, and then let's start the timer. 25 minutes. Ready? Go. Okay, we have 4 minutes left. All right. Okay, it is tough writing these things. In this amount of time, it's hard to just, settle on one idea and be satisfied with that idea. I am with you on that idea or on that sort of like difficulty of it. Sorry, I want to find there it is. Let's do 14. So I'm not totally satisfied with what I've come up with. There's a lot of repetition here. I am sure there are a lot of typos, but I want to read through this with you so that you can kind of see the direction I was going in. And you can kind of see the way that I'm trying to use a lot of different a lot of bits of textual evidence to prove my points in my topic sentence. Actually, I want to make this just a little bit bigger. Okay, so I have in this short passage from her book, Gilead, Marilynne Robinson. Has anybody read Gilead, by the way? I have read this book a long time ago, so I don't remember it at all, but it's a beautiful book, as you can kind of see from this passage. Anyway, Marilynne Robinson explores the way that human relations change in the middle of hardship. When the narrator and his father look after the grave of the narrator's grandfather, they are taken care of by a kindly countrywoman who feeds them even when food for herself is scarce. So I decided to just intro my theme a bit and then provide a summary that kind of points to my theme. This passage explores the way that the natural world impacts every level of our humanity. Using desolate imagery, I wanted a different word and I still can't remember it, like neglectful maybe would have been a better one, but oh well. To describe the setting juxtaposed with rich, mouth-watering descriptions of food and a respectful characterization of the nameless countrywoman, this passage suggests that difficult settings might foster more authentic relationships between people, relationships that reject symbolism in favor of a more satisfying and practical material reality. So that's my theme. Oops, I keep doing that. I've got a lot about imagery for my techniques. But I used a juxtaposition of imagery. All right, at the beginning of the passage, the narrator characterizes the setting as desolate by stating, "It was so bad out there, we couldn't buy food." The hardships caused by the landscape remain vague, merely bad, a description that refuses to name the source of the problem and instead focuses on the results. In this description, it doesn't matter what has caused the drought, what the economic conditions are, or how the drought might inspire political changes. See, I told you lots of typos. Instead, the narrator's concerned with the immediate effects on his own survival. It was hard to buy food. They stop at a farm, a business that will suffer the most during the drought because of its inextricable dependence on the weather, to attempt to buy subsistence and discover that relationships between people have changed. They want to pay with some coins and bills, and the woman at the stand points out that cash is no longer of any use to her. Robinson keeps the amount of money vague, using the word some to show how any amount of money will not suffice in a barter when the physical reality of a drought prevents that money from having any use in the physical world. Money is merely symbolic here, standing in for the potential for goods, and when goods are no longer available, money loses its value. The father and son must then resort to a trade of physical goods, their miserable jerky, in order to obtain food, which tasted wonderful even without salt. In this desolate landscape, beggars cannot be choosers, and the qualities of the food do not need any kind of enhancement. They have been distilled down to their purest form, a form which the narrator appreciates in the absence of any options. This kind of pure form of aesthetic enjoyment continues into the next paragraph when the narrator comments on the condition of the road and the graveyard. When the road is overgrown and barely remains a road, it also provides them just enough guidance to fulfill their purpose because they could see the ruts. The brush grew lower in the ruts because the earth was still packed so hard. What would normally be an inconvenience, we would like every road to be smooth in times of abundance and economic boom, becomes here a practical necessity. Just as the boiled eggs and boiled potatoes in the last few passages might otherwise have seemed unappetizing and even a sign of poverty and lower social class, the unkept road now serves a practical purpose that the narrator appreciates. Likewise, the graveyard, which is swamped with that dead brown grass, seems sad to the narrator, but also provides some evidence of human compassion. Someone has taken the time to hammer nails into a log to spell the letters of his grandfather's name. And though the scene is incomplete, there is no mistaking his grandfather's grave. When the father and son get back to the countrywoman's farm, they partake in a series of objective yet satisfying tasks. They walked to the lady's farm and washed at her cistern and drank from her well and slept in her hayloft. Using polysyndeton, a word I stole from AP Lang, but it works here. And I made sure that I defined it, that's mostly for you guys, a series of uncoordinated conjunctions, like using polysyndeton is using and here. The narrator suggests that each of these actions was equally satisfying, giving the washing, drinking, and sleeping equal weight. In this telling, the actions do not serve a symbolic function. The men do not wash in order to partake of an elaborate dinner at a fancy dining room table. Rather, the actions lead to the enjoyment of what sounds like the richest, most delicious meal in juxtaposition with their arid, incomplete experience at the graveyard. A supper of cornmeal mush and a breakfast of fried mush with blackberry preserves melted over it and a spoonful of top milk on it. That sounds so good. The narrator develops this simple meal in detail, blah, 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 blah. Okay, like I said, I'm a pretty fast typer. I grew up in the era of instant messaging. So everyone my age is really good at typing, just like you guys are really good at texting. So I was able to say a lot in this amount of time. Yours does not look this long, I guarantee. Mine would not look this long if I hand wrote it. When I did the blackberry picking poem with you, it was about as long as you guys had. What I want to point out is that even though I'm not super happy with my thesis statement, I went with it. I kind of, on my passage here, I wrote down a very short little idea that I was going to use, and then I perfected it in my intro, perfected it. And I went with it. So even though by the end of this, I'm like, oof, I wish that wasn't my thesis statement, I'm committed to it now, and I'm just going to write about this thesis. That'll help you in the time frame. The other thing is, even though not all of my bits of evidence are as good as others, and even though sometimes they feel a little bit like incomplete, like I'm not fully examining them, I've packed enough into each paragraph that there is at least some stuff that the AP graders would be able to say, oh, they provide evidence and they give reasoning to why their evidence fits their thesis, you know? And then I also wanted to show you how I'm sort of moving through the passage. I have something about the beginning. Now I'm getting to something about sort of the first third, something about the middle, and then I was going to go on to describe how he describes the woman. She seemed old to me. She was just a country woman trying to keep her manners and sanity. And that would be probably my last paragraph of this. And then at the end, because I typed, I'd have a couple minutes to go back and fix some of these typos. Okay, one thing I really don't like about this is especially this topic sentence. When I went back and reread it, I'm upset that I'm not organizing it around themes. Here I do, and I think it works as a pretty good transition. But here I just jump in with my evidence. And I wish I had had a sentence here that kind of like said what I was going to talk about in this paragraph. Other than that, and I do think that's a minor detail, I'm going to flatter myself and say I am on the way to a 6. I think that this would start to get a 6. If I got time to go back and kind of revise it, if I got those 5 minutes to really kind of fix some of those typos and so on. So it could be, I think it's a good model. I don't know why I'm always uncomfortable saying that. I have a PhD in English. I've been doing this a long time. This would get a 6, yes. This is a good model to kind of follow for your own writing. I think I'm uncomfortable because some of you guys are such good writers, so much better than I was in high school. Anyway, so we're going to look at your topic paragraphs or your body paragraphs now. So find, let's see, are we even? We are even. Find somebody to exchange paragraphs with, and let's kind of mix it up. Let's have Emberly and Kylie exchange. Let's have Jaden and Brooklyn exchange. And let's have Angelina and Dalen exchange. And then I would like Sam and Ella to exchange. So if you hand wrote it, take pictures and send it to each other. Figure out how to do that in the chat, or you can take off the microphone. And if you didn't handwrite it, you can just share the documents. If that doesn't work, if something goes wrong with the tech, you're going to comment on your own work. All right, I am just going to put up my lecture notes here to show you what to do, rather than write them on the board. Okay, before we get to this, read through their essay, get a sense of what they're talking about, their topics, or their thesis and so on. You don't need to comment on anything yet.
So I'm having a small degree of internet trouble. Would it work if I were to kind of just describe everything that I wrote and then we could talk about that, or should I continue trying to post it?
I think it will actually work better than to just review your own work. Be really cognitive about your own shortcomings and
Okay.
what you do well. Yeah.
Awesome.
In a second here, you're just going to comment on the side. So you'll just comment on the side of your own work.
Okay.
Okay. Ella, you are using your essay that you just wrote in the 25 minutes, however much you were able to get to, and you are thinking about, you're just sort of reading it through to see what you wrote right now, and then I'm going to have you comment on your own work using this paragraph structure peer review stuff that's on the screen right now. No need to freak out. You're okay. Okay. All right, so we're going to focus on the body paragraphs. At this point, your thesis statements, they are what they are. I think we've gotten tons of practice on those. You guys know what to do for thesis statements. So whether you hit a good thesis with this one or not is probably just random according to the prompt, because I know you know how to do those. So let's look at the body paragraphs. I've got a list of things I want you to look at. Does your topic sentence address the theme in some way? Do they provide context for quotations, or do the quotations seem to appear randomly? Like, do they say sort of what is happening at the time? Does it feel like it flows within the paragraph? Do they comment on the significance of the quotation? They make that connection between quotation and theme clear. Do they add any interesting analysis about the specifics? Like, do they break down the quotation and say what's interesting about some words and not others, or not others? You know what I mean? Do they actually comment on one or two sentences? Like if you look here, I do it here where I say, by keeping the problem vague, it shows that he won't name the source of the problem and instead focuses on the results, like little things like that, that comment on why she is choosing certain words. And then the last one, what can they add to this paragraph to make it stronger? And you're looking for something specific from the text that they can make it stronger. So if they don't break down a quote, don't just tell them break down the quote to make it stronger. Actually show them which word they could have talked about and tell them what they could have said about that word. You know, you're giving a little bit more commentary here than I usually do for your work. So I'm going to have you write first, write in the sides, and then I'll have you guys talk about it together. You want to answer each of these questions that are up here on the projector. Even if you feel like the paragraph is perfect, try to give them lots of feedback. Yep, just one paragraph. Okay, 30 more seconds. Okay, when you are ready, talk with the person, tell them about the suggestions that you made in the comments that you had, and explain it to them. You guys at home, you're just hanging tight, really, thinking about your work. I might not have put something here in the Canvas assignment. Okay, when you are back next time, I have a list that I'm going to give everyone of all of the AP prompts that have come before. So you will have, I think all the way up until 2019, you will have all the lists of the major works prompts, and so you can kind of see the nature of those. If you look at my screen here, I'm also going to give you a sample prompt from 2012, and so I need to send that to you now because it is not in the Canvas assignment. Actually, I'll edit the Canvas assignment so you got it.
That would be like a really good I really like that. And I also really so the code is kind of came out like if there's no setup, I'll just
You know what will be easier? I just realized I am going to put the link for it in the chat box because they're all online. Okay, Sam, that's the 2012 prompt we're going to be looking at closely. We're going to look at question 3 on that. And then I bet. Send you the list too. Yeah, here it is. Here's the list of all the prompts that I'm going to be giving everyone, but I could get you physical copies of those when you get back.
Oh, like yeah.
Yeah, right. All right, how you feeling about short passage? A little bit better? Not really better at all. What are your questions still about those style of essays? Yeah.
I tend to have trouble with topic sentences. And then, so what do you think is the difference between like a generic like topic sentence like mine is like the passage first takes a very bleak tone surrounding the boy and his father's journey, and that
I think that's a fine topic.
so, like,
sentence,
it
yeah.
feels a little like I don't know. I always think I don't know, like more rigid, I guess. It doesn't flow as much. Like with transition.
With transitions, in this style of essay, when you're in a rush, I would say your transitions can be about the order of things in the passage. So you could say things like it continues with this theme in the middle section when it uses this part, or it sort of this theme's expanded in this way when we get to this particular element of the passage. Does that make sense? And then as far as topic, like a bad topic sentence might be something like this passage uses metaphors, period. Where it's like we don't get any sense of how that is contributing to the passage's meaning. Even the plot or characters, it has nothing to do with the theme, like something just, that's when I say things are list-like. It is when you are just listing the different qualities that the passage has. Other than that, your topic sentences should be good for like a time situation. Yeah. Okay.
So with the AP test, I feel like all of the poems that they do are like super, like they're super deep, they're super like sophisticated sounding. But like a lot of the short passages they do are like oh, a dad and the son go in third grade. And like I feel like they don't like none of them really have like, or at least none of the ones that we looked at have like a deeper meaning to them. And so how would you like how would you go about finding a deeper meaning?
They always have some kind of deeper meaning. It's just not a hidden meaning a lot of times. It's not like everything. I have yet to see, okay, maybe the Johnny got his gun passage from last time has a bit of a like symbolic or allegorical meaning to it about him like growing up and sort of entering the world of adulthood and blah, 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 right? But other than that one, I don't think I have seen a passage that is completely symbolic or completely allegorical the way that poems can be. And instead, it is about like, you know, our joy of reading, first and foremost, is like learning what characters are doing, you know, and sort of like just seeing the story unfold. All of the short passages are going to primarily be about that because that's what writers are most interested in, right? It's not really the writer who is trying to create some deeper meaning in every choice that they make. Even though we've been talking about it that way, it's not necessarily their intention to do that, especially like, I mean, some writers really resist that. They'll be like, there is no deeper meaning. It's just a boy and his dad in a graveyard, you know? But our job as analysts, our job as the literary critics is to try to think what truth about human nature is being revealed in a certain passage. So even if that truth seems like surface level, it's still a truth that's being revealed, right? So like in this one, I kind of feel like it was surface level, the kind of love that he developed for this woman, the fact that that derived from the drought itself, you know? He even says it, like, I loved this woman, I loved her, you know, it's on the surface, but not all readers are going to get that from this passage. Most readers are going to see the passage and say, oh, it's about, I mean, not most readers, but like a kind of surface level reader is going to say, oh, a father and son are on a journey to find the graveyard. They don't necessarily look for like what is revealed about people and their connections to each other. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay. Dalen?
So how do we know that whatever message we find from the short story is was like intended? Because I know a lot of times, like people have the themes and like.
Yeah. If you can support it with your evidence, then it is there. It doesn't matter if it was intended or not. It doesn't matter if that writer was like, this is exactly what I wanted to come from this. But you want to be careful, and you don't want to take it into like extremes where you were like, this is actually a story about, you know, the Vietnam War. You don't want to take it to these extremes where like it really seems totally out there. But if you're just talking about the way that people are interacting with each other, then you can support that, you know, or a truth about like what people are like inside, you'll be able to support that. Yeah.
Kind of a side note, I think this is the first like positive theme I've really written about in an essay.
I know, I love Marilyn Robinson for that reason, because her books are full of like, people are good. People can really, you know, bring out the best in each other, which is pretty rare in the books that we read for AP Lit, you know? Like it seems like we think we associate complicated with like dark and evil. Yeah, really.
Yeah, so like with a passage like this, 'cause I do feel like this is really common with short passage essays, like the theme feels a lot more surface level. And so like, I don't know, I feel like whenever I pick out a theme like this, it's just like really simple and like, I don't know, I guess I do
Yeah.
better with like symbolism and it's like,
Mhm.
like that, but like, how do you
Like the crossing was a
Yeah.
much more complex one, right?
get like, oh, what's it called? Like the sophistication point for this kind of thing. This just seems really simple, but it's like the only one you can get without being like crazy out.
Will you tell me what your theme was?
It was service brings people together during difficult times.
Service brings people together during difficult times. I don't think that that's a simplistic theme here. Because, okay, so there are areas in this passage where that seems a little bit more obvious. When he says he loves the woman, or at the end when it says she cries when they say goodbye, even though they've only met, you know, for a couple hours. And basically they've just been a drain on her. So I see that being surface level right there. However, if you were to get that sophistication point, you would talk about how that theme exists in the entire passage. So I think this is a great clarification to make. The theme doesn't have to be so intense that it's like revolutionary for the reader, where they're like, oh my gosh, I never thought of that before, you know? But your analysis can be unique still. You could still make that theme about people being brought together through times of hardship. What'd you say about it though? Service. Okay, you could still talk about how service brings people together by talking about the graveyard and talking about the nails hammered in and how they're carefully going to like fix the headstone. And in that little section, that theme is not as obvious, and you can get that sophistication point because you're showing the kind of consistency of the theme. That's a great question. So yeah, if you're worried, you're like, oh, my theme isn't about, you know, the wolf and its simultaneous ability to be aesthetic and dangerous, you know, it's not this like really complex idea. That's okay. Not every book is about an idea that seems completely out there. A lot of books are just kind of clarifying what we already know. And so your theme, that's okay to have your theme be that thing. Look at that sophistication point with how you analyze it. Yeah, great question. Any other questions you guys have about the short passage? Yeah, Jamie.
I have a question, it's not specific. to short passage,
Mhm.
kind of test is up there.
Good, yeah.
So when we are taking it, we have 3 essays to write. Do
Yeah.
They just give us the whole block of time. And
Oh, great question. I didn't know I hadn't talked about that with you guys yet. So let me talk about the format. You walk in, the test is at 8 a.m. Anybody in here? I know Allie Rose has to take the physics test. Does anybody else take the physics test? All right, great. So it's your one test for that day. It starts at 8 a.m. I want you here at 7:30, same as usual. I'll give you some muffins and then send you down to the tech atrium. At 8, they say, okay, you have 1 hour for the multiple choice. So that is about 55 questions. It ends up being about a minute per question, which is what we've been practicing. And then you will get a 15 to 20 minute break. You get some food. I think it's 15. You get some food, you go to the bathroom, whatever you need to do, walk around a little, definitely take that break. Because when you get back, they say you have 2 hours for the essays. And they don't tell you when it's time to move on. So when they say you have 2 hours for the essays, you look at the clock, and what I think you should do is just in the corner of the paper, or like, let's say you have the prompt, in the corner of the prompt, do the math really quickly and say, okay, I need to be done with the first essay in this amount of time, and then I'll be done with the second essay at this time. And it's okay if you go a little bit under or a little bit over on that. But you kind of want to stay within those timeframes, because even if you're like, I'm not good at the poetry essay, I'll just like bomb that one and do really good on the other 2. You don't know which prompts you're getting. And so it's not a good gamble to take. You really do want to spend the 40 minutes on each essay. And yeah, again, if you finish really early on one and you're like, I just got to move on, you can. What's nice about that is that you can go back, and at the end, if you have 10 more minutes left on the essays, you can go back and look through all your essays. They will tell you, if I'm not mistaken, they will tell you when you have 5 minutes left, but that's it. Okay,
40 minutes of task.
No.
So they won't even give any time. at
no,
all.
they will just say you have 2 hours, and then with 5 minutes left, they'll say, okay, you have 5 minutes.
But there's a clock in there, right?
Yes, in the past, I'll make sure they have it this time. There's a big digital clock too. So you don't have to be able to tell time. So I remember that this class, that's a difficulty, right? Dylan?
Would it be a good idea to look at all of the prompts?
I don't think so. I think it's good just to tackle them as you get them, because there's no avoiding them, you know? And I still think it's a good idea, no matter what, to spend the 40 minutes on each essay. I think a 1 on an essay is gonna hurt you a lot more. Like even if you get 2 6s and a 1, when I did the math, that hurts you a lot more than getting just straight 3s. So you wanna spend the 40 minutes. Brooklyn?
So is it completely on paper or?
Yes.
I talked about this, but I can't remember.
Yep, it's handwritten. We did have a choice this year, so I could have chosen to let you guys do it on the computers. I'll tell you a couple reasons why I didn't do that. One, they're going to be grading all the handwritten essays together and all the computer essays together, different kind of sets of scores. And so I think it's going to be harder with the computer essays, like to write it. It's going to depend on your typing skills, which I do not want the test to depend on typing skills. The other reason I chose it is because last year there were all sorts of tech difficulties where, you know, like Luke had to take the test again because the submit button didn't work, and little things like that that caused people so much anxiety. So I just wanted to go back to the way we used to do it. So yes, entirely handwritten, which means your hand is gonna ramp. Yes, yeah. Any other questions? Yeah.
2 questions. So is that all through like pen?
You have to use a pencil on the multiple choice and a pen on the essays, and the pen needs to be blue or black ink.
Like dark blue?
Yes, dark blue or black ink. Yep.
I got in trouble in AP.
On the actual test.
No,
Oh,
for like practice test.
Yeah,
But
just that traditional blue, that, you know, thick blue, thick blue. Yeah, and we'll have a couple pens to give you day of, but you guys are AP Lit people, so I'm sure you're gonna have like 6 of them ready to go, right? Okay. Any other questions? Yeah.
And then, so there's 3 different essays. Is there a specific number of multiple choice?
It varies, but it's usually 5 passages, 3 poems, 2 short passages. So it's 5 like things to read. And then it's about 11 questions per. So it ends up being about 55 questions total, but sometimes it'll be 54, sometimes 56. Just so you know, I've been giving you prompts from the old AP tests. They are switching up the format this year to the way the tests look. And so this one is how the test will look like. It's the same sort of thing. The only thing they've added is like, they've told you what makes a good essay. That was their addition. So they were like, you need to have a claim with an interpretation. Like, it just tells you that little list will always be the same. And it just tells you what makes a good essay. So yeah, yes.
In this, I got kind of confused, so I just went with what we've been doing. But it says like, write a paragraph in which makes a flexible claim and like, blah, 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 and then in your paragraph, you should incorporate at least one piece of evidence for text. Did it mean write an essay? Or is it
Yes.
talking about the first
I am
paragraph?
so sorry. I did not catch that. Yes, this was a sample thing that they used last year, but then they revised it to work on AP Classroom. Have you guys used AP Classroom in other classes? Are you finding that it's a nightmare? I hate it. I hate it so much. But anyway, so this like fit into like their units on there. So yes, it will say essay. It will say, it will never be about a paragraph. Yeah, no.
That would be nice.
Yes, yeah, it would be.
Is there a certain essay that we have to write like poetry first, then?
No, they are listed in that order. It goes poetry, short passage, major works. But you can choose which one you want to do first. And you see this little box on the top of the line paper, you just put the question number you're working on. So it doesn't even need to be in the same order in your written booklet. Another question people sometimes have, you can write all over the test booklet. You paid $100 for that. That is yours. So you can write what you want on that. You can't take it home, no, but it is yours for the 4 hours that you're in there. Oh no, 3 hours. 3 hours, don't worry. And then other questions people have is, do I need to go to class afterwards? That's up to you. The test is an A day, it's next Wednesday. So you won't come to this, like you won't have to have this class that day and there won't be any work that you miss. I'm not gonna like set up a homework assignment for you or anything. You'll miss second period. And then I think it's your choice at that point, go to third period or get your parents to check you out. But we do have an attendance policy this quarter, so do get those excused when you check out. Yeah.
After the test, what are we gonna do?
Book club. So we'll all choose a book we want to read from the book room. I have a bunch of options, and then we'll mostly be reading in class and talking about it and doing little activities and no homework. Yeah. No homework after the test. Yeah. No, you guys have done plenty of homework for this class. Okay, any other questions? All right, we still have one more day of review. So if anything comes up between now and then, you let me know and I can answer, hopefully. All right, let's talk about this major works essay then. Only 15 minutes left of class. So I've got a list of all of the prompts that they have used since 1970 for the major works. You guys are just keeping, I'm not going to look at those essays that you just wrote, unless you really want me to. Okay, there are all the prompts. In the 70s, they were kind of vague. They don't really look like that anymore. So if you're getting, if you want a better idea of what they're going to look like, probably 1990 and on. Especially when you get into the into the 2000s, and I'm sorry about my copier, my printer's running out of ink. Into the 2000s, you could expect them to look anything like this. Sometimes they'll have a quotation that they're asking you to respond to. Sometimes it's just a sort of aspect of the story. One thing you'll notice from the Gilead prompt is that they were asking you to talk specifically about setting. Sometimes they will sort of organize your thoughts in these prompts that way as well. Let me get you an example. What it will look like. That has the question, but it doesn't have the list of text. One from 2012 says, It has a quotation. And after all, our surroundings influence our lives and characters as much as fate, destiny, or any supernatural agency. So basically it's like your surroundings influence you. And then it says, choose a novel or play in which cultural, physical, or geographical surroundings shape psychological or moral traits in a character. Then write a well-organized essay in which you analyze how surroundings affect this character and illuminate the meaning of the work as a whole. Okay, illuminate the meaning of a work as a whole. What does that one mean? It means theme. It always just means theme. Illuminate the meaning of the work as a whole. They always use some sort of phrase like that. I don't know why they don't just say theme. I think it's because theme is kind of a controversial word. Sometimes it just means topic and blah, blah, blah. So the meaning of the work as a whole is a theme. This one, even more than poetry and short passage, if you don't have a theme that you are exploring, some sort of focus for the story, then you are not going to do well on the essay. So look at how vague this is. You are thinking about setting, like the geographical surroundings, sure. But you can also think about the physical surroundings. So like, I think that means you could think about their house or their family or like whoever's around them. And you can also think about the cultural surroundings. So anything about that person's culture. And it's the way that that shapes someone's psychological traits, so how their mind works, or their moral traits, so the decisions that they make. Do you see how you could literally use any text at all for this prompt? That happens quite a bit. Sometimes it's a little bit more narrow. Like yesterday I gave them a prompt about unusual origins, unusual or mysterious origins. But usually, I mean, Brooklyn talked about Mr. Darcy with that and it totally worked. We don't know exactly about his past and everybody speculates. And so it was unusual or mysterious, right? For this one, it is, I really think literally anything. But they say, choose a work from the list below or one of comparable literary merit. So look at this list. I don't think this list has anything we've read on it. Oh no, it has King Lear. Oh, awesome. That was awesome. Okay, great. So it has two. Some of the prompts won't. We've only read 6 texts in this class. Without Fridays, I usually am able to get to 7, but this year I was not able to. So you've only read 6. Let's write them up on the board. We've done Crime and Punishment first. Then we did a bunch of poems, and then we did King Lear. Then we did As I Lay Dying. We did Pride and Prejudice. When I list them like this, the year has flown by. I really thought that would not be the case for COVID, but Streetcar Named Desire. And Lord of the Flies. That's the one with Jewel and Darl and all the stream of consciousness narration. Addie, the mom that's dying. Okay, so those are the texts we've talked about. Could you talk about psychological and moral development in Crime and Punishment? Yeah, I think so. King Lear, obviously, it's on the list. As I Lay Dying, can you talk about how Darl's surroundings influence his psychological development? Absolutely. Pride and Prejudice, you could talk about, I mean, it's on there, but the way that society has influenced the girls, right? Streetcar Named Desire, could you talk about New Orleans or Belle Reve and how that's influenced? Yep. Lord of the Flies, could you talk about how the island influences their psychological development? Yeah. So all of these would fit with this prompt. Even with the one that said, talk about mysterious origins. We don't really know much about Raskolnikov before he enters the book. Mysterious origins. King Lear, we don't know anything about Edmund the Bastard's mom, right? Mysterious origins. As I Lay Dying, Jules. We read some books with bastards. Jewel, we don't know anything about his dad, right? Pride and Prejudice, Mr. Darcy worked. Streetcar Named Desire, we don't really know what's happening in Blanche's past till the very end, right? So mysterious circumstances. Lord of the Flies, Ella used Lord of the Flies for that same prompt, and it works because we don't really know what the boys are like before they get to that island.
Or how they, or like why they were on the way.
Or why they're even on the way. Yeah, exactly. So I would say almost every prompt, almost every text fits. Sometimes it feels like one might be more appropriate to talk about than another or more obvious. And so you probably want to go with that one, but you can make it fit. And they do that on purpose. They want you to talk about books that you know really well. Let's talk about this idea of comparable literary merit. What is another book you would like to talk about that is of comparable literary merit with this prompt? Awesome. Yeah. So if you were in Miss Plummer's 11th grade class, you were set for that.
Groups of that.
Grapes of Wrath is on here and you could do that too. When did you read Grapes of Wrath? Last year? Freshman year? I'm asking because I'm considering doing it junior year next year.
Well, I actually, it might have been.
Okay. What's not on here that you would want to use? Yeah,
Hobbit.
you could use The Hobbit, I think. I think that is of comparable literary merit. Barely. So be careful with children's books. And The Hobbit is technically for kids. I think you could use The Hobbit. I think that has gained enough kind of attention to be comparable literary merit. By the way, this is all about like sort of prejudiced old white guys who have decided what is of comparable literary merit for like hundreds of years now. So I'm not saying I love The Hobbit, but that's one that's kind of like right on that edge. Alice in Wonderland is another one that's kind of right on that edge, or Peter Pan, that are like classics. They're of literary merit. They might not be the very best choice because they are children's books.
What do they mean by literary?
That's what we're trying to identify
Oh,
here.
sweet, okay.
Yeah,
Could you do the
Great Gatsby would be perfect for this. And I am very surprised Great Gatsby isn't on here, honestly. Yeah, that's always of comparable literary merit.
Good Hobbit then. Not
Yep.
one of the children's books.
Kind of, but it's been sort of incorporated into more appropriate for adults now. Huck Finn would be a great one. You'd probably be talking about Jim, yeah? Or,
Yeah, probably.
yeah, okay, Kylie?
Although play, or if it's a play, or like if there's a book of it, or if it's like a.
Yeah.
But Tale of Two Cities.
Tale of Two Cities is a book, and that would definitely be of literary merit, yes. Every once in a while, I will have people that try to write, not on the test, thank goodness, but will try to write these essays about musicals, or sometimes movies. That's got to be text primarily, and it's okay if it was a drama first, but musicals don't really work for that because they're not like, I don't know, nobody just like reads the Hamilton script to study it at this point, right? So no musicals. Yeah, Dylan. Jane Eyre would be really good. Is that not on here?
No.
That would be a really good one for this. Yeah. So what we are discovering is that there are a list of classics that are considered canonical that are definitely of comparable literary merit. A rule of thumb, I think, for you guys is nothing post 1960. There are some exceptions to that rule. There are books that have become classics very quickly, like books like Beloved. There's books on here like Oryx and Crake that was published in like 2014 or something, like really recent. No, it wouldn't have been 14 because this is 2012. I think 2008 for Oryx and Crake. Like there are some of those, but if you're trying to decide on a book that is not on the list, I think post 1960 is a good rule of thumb. Yeah, Dalen?
What about people from
Good one. Yep.
Warrior Cats?
No warrior cats. No warrior cats. No, what was some others that I've had? No YA. Like I've gotten a lot of Salt to the Sea. Is that the book? I used to get Salt to the Sea a lot because they read that in junior high, and so they studied it, right? But and so I think sometimes they're like, okay, that'd be a comparable literary value, but it's technically for like a young adult audience. It's newer. Be very careful with those. Hunger Games, don't do Hunger Games, don't do Harry Potter, those ones. Yeah.
I don't know if you read like Olive's Ocean.
When was it published?
I have no idea. I just know that I listened to it once.
Olive's Ocean. My guess is no, because I haven't heard of it.
Okay.
And that sounds pretentious, but if I haven't heard of it, it's probably not going to be something that AP graders are going to consider like great literary value.
Okay. I'm gonna send it to you. I like
Okay.
that.
Awesome. Okay, good. And then maybe I'll decide differently. Yeah, Everly.
What about like a separate piece? We read that one.
Yeah, you could do that one. Yep, that one has anything that you've read in school post junior high. I don't think, well, no, that's not true. I wouldn't do Speak. If you've done Speak, I wouldn't do that one. I wouldn't do, I'm trying to think of some of the other,
Princess Bride.
The Hate You Give, I wouldn't do. Princess Bride, potentially that's on the edge though. That's on the edge, Princess Bride, but it's kind of gotten some literary merit in recent years because of its postmodernism. Hate You Give, I wouldn't do. I wouldn't do any John Green books, like that kind of stuff. Is that making sense, that distinction now?
Yeah.
Okay, Dalen?
What about
Oh, To Kill a Mockingbird. Yes, you can use that one. Yeah. To Kill a Mockingbird is kind of a controversial choice these days and age because we've been talking a lot about like white savior complexes in books.
Yeah.
But if you were to acknowledge that kind of stuff, you'd be good. Yeah, that'd be a good one. So anything you've read in the past that you've like really attached onto, like Ms., Count of Monte Cristo, Scarlet Letter. I know all of you love the Scarlet Letter. Don't use nonfiction for this prompt. So if you've read, if you read Frederick Douglass or you read Ta-Nehisi Coates, don't use that for this prompt. Just use fiction. Yep, Crucible would be good. Death of a Salesman. Are there any other plays that we do? Any Shakespeare that you've done?
I do things by she wrote
If it's Agatha Christie, no.
her.
How did I know that?
I don't know.
Yeah, don't do Agatha Christie. Stay away from genre fiction.
So, like,
Othello would be awesome. Yeah, any Shakespeare would work. Okay, so yeah, anything that your teacher would say, that's a classic, would be okay. Let me tell you about the assignment for next time. It's on Canvas. You are going to be making 4 note cards, and by note cards, I think it's probably best, and in fact, I will get you some card stock if you want it. I think a good size of a note card would be like half a card stock. So if you want a couple of these, you can grab them or you can use your own kind of paper, but you're gonna make study cards for yourself. It is a good idea to know 4 books very well going into the test, because then you don't have to make it stretch if it fits. One book that is almost always on there is this one. And another one that's always on there is this one. And this one appears quite a lot. These 2 are a little bit less frequent, and this one's kind of along with Pride and Prejudice. So if you're kind of trying to say which one's the best bang for my buck, you could do it that way. But for me, I would go into it always writing about As I Lay Dying, because that's the one I know the best already. So it kind of depends on where your interests lie, which 4 you're going to choose. You must choose at least 2 of the books we've done this year. You could have all 4 be about the books we've done, but you have to have at least 2. And then 2 others could be from past years or other books of literary merit, if you would like to. You're going to create these note cards, and they have certain information on it, like the author, year of publication, 3 central themes, and you will have 3 quotations that you can memorize from that book. Keep them short so you can remember them, because you want to remember them word for word, so that when it comes time, you might be able to quote from it, which would be awesome. That really will earn you that sophistication point. When you come to class next time, we'll talk more about this style of essay, but we will also do a little oral exam where you'll come see me back in the back of the room, and I will quiz you from these 4 sheets, and anything that's on the 4 sheets is game. So I can say, okay, tell me a quote from Streetcar Named Desire, and you will tell me the quote. So they are study guides for you to know 4 texts. Ms. Topham used to say to have in your back pocket on the test. I like that. Yeah. Nope. No, and you don't need any sort of in-text citations at all on the AP Lit test. Okay. Any other urgent questions? Yeah?
When I do my cards, I only read 3 books. And I want to.
Yes, you only have to do 2 from us. And then two can be also from us, or from, you could do Glass Menagerie or something right on your own, or whatever books you feel like, I'm going to know these the best. Okay, then let's clean up.